Hey everyone, Chen here, bringing you guys the long-awaited video. A ton of people have asked me to make a full in-depth guide that includes literally everything a person needs to know to start playing Akshan. So finally, I can say, here you go. Before we begin, if you don't know who I am, let me throw in some credentials. I am an Akshan main and have been maining him since release. I stream basically every single day playing him and am consistently challenger every single season. Here's a screenshot of a recent climb I did, reaching challenger with roughly an 80% win rate at Akshan. I'm also known as the best Akshan in North America and easily top 5 in the world. With all that being said, hopefully now you can trust me and the information I'm about to share in this video. And let's begin the learning process for the Rogue Sentinel. Starting off the guide, we are going to touch on Akshan's strength and weaknesses. I'm not going to spend too much time for this portion of the video, but basically, in my opinion, if you understand what a champ excels at and what it doesn't excel at, you have a better understanding of the champ and, capabilities to play. So starting off with Akshan's strength, the very first one is his early skirmishing power. What I mean by this is his ability to take fights with number advantage or equal number and generally just win them. He doesn't really lose many 1v1s early game, and he doesn't really lose any 2v2s early game. Vice versa, right? Let's say you're taking a fight for bot lane, straight up 3v3, you will not lose that very often. It depends on, obviously, what champs you're picking, what champ they're picking. Yes, but because of his kits and his E resets and just E in general being an absurd ability early game, you will win a lot of these early skirmishes like 90% of the time. Why do I say this? I say this because you want to approach these early game skirmishes as many times as you can, even if your wave is bad, which I'll touch on later on when I talk about how you want to play early game. But generally, his early skirmishing power is a very, very strong strength of his. It has been weakened because of all the Akshan nerfs, but it is still very, very strong in the game. He rarely will lose any sort of skirmishes. His second strength, and what I believe or perceive to be his strongest strength, what I identify as a champion. So when you think of a champion, you want to identify what they want to do. In my opinion, I think roaming is his number one thing that he, in terms of strength, right? Very common. You'll see me, if you ever watch any of my streams before, I'm taking TP, that's number one, and I'm literally just sacking and going for roams, making sure I am getting someone else ahead, because Akshan cannot carry, right? So his ability to roam is extremely strong. Why is that? Because of his W. His W gives you camo, and that is just a very strong ganking power, roaming power. Real quick, I do want to touch on the fact that you can literally W after shoving a wave, sit on the mid wall, and people will think you're roaming, so they have to respect you. That is an insane amount of prio you create in between every single wave that most champions can't do in the mid lane, which is very, very valuable. So keep that in mind. That, in my opinion, is his strongest strength. The reason why I'm emphasizing this is because if you're playing Akshan and you're literally not roaming at all, you're playing the champion wrong. So next strength is kind of ties into roaming. It's his ability to shove. You might be like, Chen, doesn't every mid lane champion basically shove super quickly, level 7, level 9? That is true. However, it is the manner in which they shove it. Akshan is one of the fastest, if not the fastest shover. I believe him and Echo are generally tied. They almost kill a wave in like 1 second if they do it properly. And that is obviously extremely valuable. Imagine going to mid lane, pressing Q, auto, I believe, and the whole wave's basically dead, right? And that happens not exactly early game, but it happens, once you get your item, once you get your levels, that's your shoving pattern. And having that shoving pattern is extremely strong to be able to impact the other side of the map. And his last strength, this is a no-brainer, his ability to res teammates. I'm not going to touch too much on this. It is a strength, but in my opinion, it's not like what you want to play Akshan for. Don't associate Akshan with, hey, I want to res my teammates. It is just a nice strength that he has. It's definitely something you do want to be cognizant about, but don't be like, hey, I have this ability to res my teammates. That's almost always what I'm playing for. That's not the case. Moving on to his weaknesses. He's got a lot, so bear with me. First weakness, low mobility. This is a no-brainer. He doesn't really have much mobility besides his W. Yes, his W is camo, and that's still really, really good mobility, but in team fights, that's not mobility. You might be like Chen. His E is insane for mobility. Yeah, but what happens when you use a baddie and you're dead? What happens when they jump onto you and you're dead? What happens if they CC you? You're dead. So keep that in mind. He doesn't really have Basically, this weakness, all I'm trying to get at is your positioning is actually very, very important on Akshan. You're going to have to position in a way where you're not in danger and to a point where you can use your E to both get in and get out type, process. So think about it like that. His second weakness, and this is probably his biggest weakness, just in general as a champion, is his low range. He has 500 attack damage or 500 attack range. His Q is relatively low range, and then his E obviously does no damage unless you're directly on top of them. Now, his R does have good range, but let's be honest, his R is terrible, okay? So keep that in mind. He is a very low range character, which kind of ties into the first weakness. Your positioning on the champion needs to be crystal clear, and you need to have a plan as to where you're moving and where you're going to move next. So keep that in mind. Third weakness is he is a very feast or famine champion. This is a no-brainer. Think about Katarina, but potentially even worse. In my opinion, I think Katarina is actually better from a behind state than Akshan is, because Katarina, she can dish out a bunch of damage regardless of how behind she is, and she does it to 5 people. Akshan, if you're behind, you jump in, you're trying to get a reset, but you have no damage and you die. So keep that in mind, very feast or famine. Next weakness, you cannot play him into specific comps. Chen, why are you mentioning this as a weakness? This is a massive weakness. I could literally play in like a diamond masters lobby in which I should technically smurf on, but if they play specific champions like Malphite, a self-heal AD carry like Xayah, Rakan, and then a CC jungler or a tank jungler, and then a mid laner that I can never jump into, you cannot play the game no matter how good you are. Literally. And that is a massive weakness. Other champions have outplay potential. Akshan doesn't have that. He really doesn't, because you are so gated into your kits. Unless the enemy mid laner is running it down, going 0-20, you're not going to be able to play that game. And even if you are 20-0, if the other side of the map stabilizes, you're still going to lose and piss low lobbies. So keep that in mind. This isn't a real weakness into can I run Akshan every single game. You still can be an Akshan OTP, but keep that in mind that you just can't play into specific comps. Don't like enter specific comps expecting to be able to get a really good game. There are times where you literally cannot play the game and it's going to feel terrible. So lastly, another weakness that I do need to touch on that is a weakness for a mid lane is the fact that he does force full AD comps generally. In the mid lane, when you OTP or even choose an AD champion, you are kind of gating your teammates and setting them a little bit back by basically forcing AD, because top is generally AD, jungle, majority of jungle players play AD, and then obviously ADC plays AD. So keep that in mind. It is a weakness that you are probably forcing a lot of AD comp situations. Bear in mind that it doesn't really matter though. If you're good enough on Akshan, you should still be able to carry. Alrighty, let's move on to his abilities and combos. Now, his abilities are pretty self-explanatory, so I don't want to make this part too long, but I'm just going to explain basically every single intricate thing about his abilities and then go on to some important combos that you need to know. So, first and foremost, his passive. The first part of his passive is where you double auto, so as you can see, you will have a double auto. This is a very, very unique passive that most champions don't have, right? They can only auto once, but Akshan can utilize a double auto. And important things to keep in mind with this one is your first auto, your second one is going to extend your range. So as you can see, you see how that range increases? Why is that important? Basically, if they're ever running from your max range, you are always going to get that second auto off. So keep that in mind. Let me show you one more time. You see how significantly farther it is? Keep that in mind. So if, for example, if you're in max range right now, instead of double autoing for extra damage, you should actually be auto and then walk upwards, and then as they keep running, you auto because it'll keep up, right? So just keep that in mind, small things like that with the passive. Also, another thing I would recommend you actually, if you've never played Akshan before, I would actually recommend this sort of practice where you practice canceling the auto, because it's such a unique passive that I feel like if you don't get practice with different attack speed setup, so like just buying some random items with attack speed, practice a bunch, right? So every single item will have a different speed. You want to be able to practice and kite efficiently with just one auto first, right? Because being able to one auto is one of the best ways to actually kite people around. It is giving you a bunch of movement speed, so just keep that in mind. The second part of his passive is the 3-hit thing. Think about like Vayne, but with Akshan, it procs off of every single ability. So for example, auto, you're going to see two things right there. And then Q, it's going to proc it. Q procs another one. E procs all of it. And then R also procs. Why is this valuable? It's really not. I'm going to be honest. The only time that, keeping in mind they have a 3-hit passive, is basically just for your damage threshold. For example, if you auto them twice in like a team fight, you should know your next auto is doing extra damage. That's all you really care for. The reason why I'm saying it like this though is because everything procs it, you don't actually care to look for it that much. For example, if you're all-inning, this doesn't change how you all-in. Does that make sense? You're just always going to all-in until they're dead. But knowing when they're about to hit the 3 for the extra damage is pretty valuable. Unfortunately, proc rubs here, but let's go here. And then the second thing is the shield. Once again, same thing with what I mentioned in the third passive. Rarely will you be like, hey, I have a shield, let me go in here. Generally speaking, if it's a go-in angle, if you play enough Akshan, and if it's a go-in angle, you're going to go in, right? You're not going to like look for the passive. That's basically what I'm trying to explain at. And yeah, moving on to his Q. Q is very basic. You're throwing a boomerang. If it lands, you get movement speed. Keep in mind, you get movement speed for both of it, so you can see the fourth thing right here. You get it once, and then once it comes back, you get another one. So, yep, that is the Q, and it deals damage. It extends for every single thing you hit, so generally speaking, if you're laning, you want to try to curve it into hitting them because it extends. Alright, next ability, W. The passive, I can't actually show you in practice tool, but I assume you are familiar with the passive. Basically, you go camo, and if you hug a wall, as you can see the indicator, this is your duration for going camo. But if you hug a wall at any points, for example here, you will stay camo. So that is very important. Another practice that I would recommend if you are new to Akshan is actually just traversing around the terrain and trying to see, a good practice actually mid lane, trying to traverse around the terrain to actually, you know, connect movements, stuff like that. Being able to practice this is very valuable to maintain your camo. All right, and then the passive is something I can't really show you, but I can kind of explain it. Obviously, if someone's a scoundrel, let's say this guy's a scoundrel, I will be running faster towards him, and I also get mana if I run towards him, which is kind of underrated. It doesn't really matter, but and then also if I kill him, if he's a scoundrel, that's where your res comes, right? That's where you res. If, let's say this guy killed a teammate, if I kill him, I res and get 100 extra gold. Cool. That is everything that goes on with W. One cool thing I want to touch on with W is the fact that if you see right here, once it is maxed out, you get a 0 mana cost, 1.74 cooldown camo. Why is that valuable? Well, it plays into poke build heavily, and it just plays with how you want to play late game, being camo and looking for flanks. So keep that in mind. In late game, it goes on a 2-second cooldown. Yeah, I'll touch more on about it when I talk about combos, but yeah. Let's move on to his E. This is, in my opinion, his best ability. In my opinion, the most signature ability. First part is you latch on. Second part is you swing. Third part is you get off. Okay, there's 3 parts to this ability. So let me kind of explain basically how to use it, right? I made a video how to actually use his E. I wanted to remake that video, but I would still give it a watch. It is a good watch, but because it's an in-depth guide, I will kind of still explain it for you guys, but that bit's probably just going to explain it a lot better. If you haven't watched it, I do recommend. Basically, when you E, you want to draw a circle. So for example, right here, if I draw this circle out, and they give you an indicator, as you see right here and right here, they give you an indicator where to go. So you should be able to draw that perfect circle to understand basically how to traverse around enemies, right? Why is this valuable? Well, if you do baddies, you're missing out on significant damage. Yeah, so as you can see here, there's some things you can do to like really pivot. For example, if I do it like this, you see how I can completely traverse? Being able to master the E is extremely valuable, and it's his hardest part, right? When people ask me, Chen, how hard is Akshan to learn? His E is literally just, that's it, right? So being able to understand that is very valuable. Now, how to use his E? Basically, let me see how I can demonstrate. Okay, so pay attention to when my shots stop. As you can see, it basically kept firing all the way, but like, let's say hypothetically, let's say an enemy's here, right? Pay attention to when my shots stop. My shots kind of stop here. So this is basically like an artificial range, if you want to think about it. Why is this valuable? Because being able to understand that range is valuable. So for example, when I'm out of range, I right-click, that procs the final shot, and I create distance, right? So that's just kind of something you need to understand with this E, and obviously the more practice you get, the better. So keep that in mind once I'm out of range, right? For example, if I'm out of range there, I'm going to click into him to get the final shot and also stay in his range. That is how you maximize damage. Cool. Moving on to his R. His R, you lock onto a champion for 2.5 and you store bullets, and it deals damage and it executes. So, or not execute, but deals more damage based on missing health. So as you can see here, that was a fully charged R. You can see this bar. If I do it short, that only fired like 4 shots. If I do it really short, that fired like 3. If I do it all the way, it fires 7, right? And obviously it goes up in numbers once you get higher levels on R. Pretty self-explanatory ability. I don't have to say anything. Cool. Now let's move on to a little bit of combos. Now, obviously, there's not a whole lot of combos, hence why I've never made an Akshan combo guide. I'm not silly enough to make one like that. There's not a lot of combos, but I'm just going to give you the most practical use of combos, and hopefully that'll help. So, in laning phase, the most practical combo is Q, auto-auto. That is the most practical combo in laning phase. If you're mid lane, trying to trade, you can auto-auto Q. Either way, it works. All you're looking to do is proc your passive, and looking to proc your shield passive, your 3-hit passive, and looking to run out. So something like that is a very standard trading pattern, and very standard combo. Important to note, if you extend it a little bit, you're going to proc 3 times. So what do I mean by this? Auto-auto, Q, auto-auto. Or no, my auto went there. Okay, let me retry. Auto-auto, Q, auto-auto. As you can see, you proc your passive 3 times. So if we're talking about combos, auto-auto, Q, or auto-auto, Q, well, technically Q backwards, auto-auto is going to proc it 3 times. So let me show you like this. Boom. You're procking passive 3 times. Generally speaking, in laning phase, you don't really care for that. I am always going for like a shorter trade, something like that, and then deciding if I can EN. But if you want to proc your passive 3 times for most damage, auto-auto Q, auto-auto is going to proc that as fast as you can. Cool. Now, other combos, QE is a pretty standard one. Generally speaking, once again, the reason why I've never made a combo guide is because it's just so situational. Whenever you want to E, whenever you want to Q. So like, you can Q and you can technically E whenever you want. You can keep autoing, you can E, it doesn't matter, right? It's all situations, right? Alright, let's go back into talking about combos. What other combos you have? You have the W into Q. So let's say hypothetically this is the enemy and the enemy is trying to walk towards me. Even though I'm outside of camel range, because I'm in camel range right now, you can see the exclamation, which means he sees me, which means look at how much time I need to walk to him. Watch. You guys see that? That's a lot of time, and if they're human, they're running away. It takes me like 2 seconds to walk to them. But what'll happen, and this is a very important concept that Akshan mains need to understand, if the enemy is walking towards you, you close that distance significantly. If they're walking towards me and I'm walking towards them, it's basically a guaranteed hit. Why is that important? Because if they're walking towards me, I can Q, auto-auto, get the movement speed that Q gives you, and then you collapse with the autos, right? So that is a very bread and butter combo that you should be doing in the mid lane. For example, going camo, trying to throw Q, and then auto-auto, right? Cool. Now I'm going to talk about realistically the only combo Akshan has, besides, I mean, I might as well talk about this now. You can QE, or Q flash. This is a combo you can do. Rarely is that useful, but you can Q flash, auto-auto. That's it. That's literally it. Cool. Now, genuinely the only combo that Akshan has, literally the only combo, is his RE combo. Let me explain. When you are, if you're swinging, you're not doing damage. You see how my swing does no damage? Let me show you one more time. My swing is doing no damage. You see that, right? Whereas your swing should be doing damage, but if you are, you're not doing damage. This is genuinely the only combo Akshan has. The combo is you latch on. I nailed it, it's fine. Let me try one more time. You latch on. you are firing your R bullets while firing your E bullets, if you saw that. Now, obviously, it waits until you're finished with R, so you want to try to cast as late as you can. Let me try to demonstrate that a little bit better. Yeah, so I fired maybe like 5 E bullets. Obviously, you're not firing as much bullets as like a perfect circle. I'm gonna fire a lot more E bullets from like this position, but you're basically wasting animations and doing maximum damage, right? So hypothetically, if someone's like here, and I need to kill them, we'll do something like this, and we'll do something like this, and they're just dead, right? Like, it is insane amount of damage. That's basically the only combo you really need to grasp. If you fuck it up, bear in mind, once again, if you E, while you're R'd, you cannot E. So practice a little bit timing. You have to do it when it's literally at 0, and that is just combo. That's all the combos you really have. Another combo that I actually forgot, that kind of is important. Rarely will you use it, but there are instances that you do use it, is the E flash combo. So for example, once again, I've explained how E works, but if you E, you can... Okay, how do I best describe this? Actually, let me do it like this. If you E and you're too far, let's say they flash, you can E for the final shot. Okay, there's no way I can... Okay, let me do a very short E. As you can see, if I flash, my final shot, the third cast, which fires the final shot, is going to latch on. And this is still valuable. Obviously, this example is kind of terrible, but being able to do that and auto, like basically you can cancel your E and continue damaging them. So this is really, really good to finish people. Like, let's say hypothetically in mid lane, you're trying to kill someone, he's all the way here, they're running, you E, you can flash and do the final shot and then Q, right? So that is a very, very valuable combo to actually know, the E flash combo. All right, let's move on to Akshan itemization. This itemization is going to be actually fairly short. The reason being is I'm going to present to you guys the most consistent, in my opinion, the most consistent Akshan build, and I'm doing this in preparation for item changes. Obviously, items are getting shifted around left, right, and center, but this has been the most consistent build for the longest time now. And if there's like a new OP build, obviously I'll make a video about that as a standalone video. But for you guys, just, you know, whether you're coming in right now, never knowing, or just wanting to learn Akshan, this is the most consistent build and you definitely need to give it a try. So starting off with your starting items, you are going to want to go Health Pod, Doran's Blade every single game. During a patch where they buffed Doran items, you are never going to want to go a different starting item, because having that 100 health, having that 10 AD damage, having that 3.5 lifesteal throughout basically the whole entire early to mid game is insanely valuable, and you just never want to skip out on it. Now, when you're going for your first back, you are either going to back for recurve bow or Noon Quiver and try to get a refill pot. Generally speaking, that is going to be your best backs. So think about 850, think about 1450. Those thresholds are really, really good for you. Think about even 500, right? A dagger refill pot or a longsword refill pot. Either way, those are going to be really good back timers for you. Now, the reason why you want refill pod is because Akshan obviously has no innate sustain. Refill pod will allow you to basically force shove and just roam a bunch of times. You can do that, you know, you have 2 refill pots, you can do that. You can find yourself cheating a lot of roam timers because of the refill pot. And honestly, you just need it against some matchups like Syndra, Orianna, Victor, Azir. You just kind of need it unless you're just completely sacking waves to roam. So that is the backs. I do prefer a recurve bow over Noon Quiver. So generally speaking, 700 gold is your best back because it is the strongest, you know, miniature power spike. But keep in mind, if you are just extending lane, going for Noon Quiver is not bad as well, because once you get Noon Quiver, you can just hard shove waves extremely fast and roam extremely fast, something you can't really do with recurve. So keep that in mind. Now, once you go into those first items, obviously you're building into Kraken Slayer. You go into Kraken Slayer, Blade of the Ruined King, Stridebreaker, and Terminus, and then you can go Situational Jack Show or Guardian Angel. So let me explain this build real quick for you guys. The reason why this build is, in my opinion, the most consistent build is because it has everything you need into every team comp, if that makes sense. So I made a video called Why is On Hit Bad? If you haven't checked that out already, I highly recommend giving that a watch. It is a very good video that I made, basically demonstrating why on-hit is bad on Akshan, right? Has something to do with his 500 attack range, has something to do with the fact that everyone else who is at 500 attack range has more mobility, has more up play potential to utilize on hit, whereas Akshan doesn't have anything, right? So keep that in mind. I would give that a watch, but you don't even need to watch that to understand basically how Stridebreaker works. So I've made a bunch of videos on Stridebreaker. It's a very simple concept in my opinion. You're basically building Stridebreaker for the 450 HP starters, the 50 AD plus 30% attack speed, and then the active. Those are the 3 reasons why you're building Stridebreaker. You might be asking, Chen, for what? Well, let me explain here. First and foremost, 50 AD plus 30% attack speed is actually a hefty amount of stats when you compare it to other, on-hit items, right? It is a lot of stats. 30% attack speed is basically the max you're going to get out of just any on-hit item, right? So you're basically substituting it on hits, but getting equal attack speed, right? And then the 450 HP is obviously the biggest thing. Having that upfront 450 HP plus Doran's Blade 100 HP, you have 550 HP plus runes. You are literally cheating upwards to 800 HP to survive a bunch of scenarios. There's a bunch of times where I'm surviving against assassins like Rengar, Zed, Talon, just because I have this much HP that are stacked up to each other, and I'm not losing out damage either. A very common thing people will say is, Chen, when I build Stridebreaker, I'm losing out so much damage. That is just false. Kraken Slayer, Bork as your main 2 core, and then Stridebreaker having 50 AD, 30% attack speed, and the active that you can do, I think it does roughly 200 damage. You're not losing out on damage, you're just playing it wrong, quite frankly. So that is why Stridebreaker 3rd is very good, and then Terminus synergize very well because it's an on-hit item, but it gives you armor and magic resist that plays really well with the HP. As you guys know, the more HP you have and the more armor resist you have, it just keeps stacking and stacking upon each other. So that is why this build is absolutely insane and the most consistent build in my opinion. Now, when do you slot in boots? You want to slot in boots in between your 2nd and 3rd item or after your 3rd item. All of that is fine. Rarely will I do a tier 2 boot after my 1st item. It depends on, like, let's say they're hyper full AD, hyper full, AP, then I'll do it just because it gives me insane value. But generally speaking, you are always going to be wanting Kraken Slayer, Bork, still tier 1 boots, and then if you don't have enough gold, you can go tier 2 boots, stuff like that. And then a common thing people ask me as well is, what items are you prioritizing between Bork and between Stride? For Bork, any 3 of the components are fine. I think Recurve is still the best, so you want to almost always go Recurve, and then Pickaxe and Vamp are both equally good, so you just buy it whenever you have enough gold. Now, in terms of Stride, this is very important actually. Do not mess this up. Stridebreaker, you want to go Phage first. Never go Tiamat first. It is an absolute dog water item. It's not going to give you anything, whereas Phage gives you, the 15 AD, 200 HP, and also the attacks that gives you movement speed, basically allowing you to actually play on hit and utilize your Kraken Bork with that movement speed to kite. So, lastly, I forgot to mention when I was talking about Stridebreaker, but it also gives you movement speed. That's very important to notice. Dealing physical damage grants movement speed, and then also breaking, utilizing its passive, utilizing its active to, you jump in, you stride, you already have that movement speed because you're dealing damage, and then you get increased movement speed because of the item. You are just kiting everyone. So that is the whole premise of Stridebreaker. Alright, let's talk about Akshan rune pages. So his runes, I'm going to be honest, haven't really changed throughout the years. They've actually stayed relatively the same. Starting off with the keystone, or the main keystone that you want, is going to be Press the Attack. This is no surprise. Press the Attack is the maximum amount of damage you can do out of any keystone. When you think about specific keystones like Electrocute, Conquer, First Strike, I mean, you name it. Press the Attack is just the maximum damage, and Akshan procs it extremely quickly with his E. So Press the Attack is going to be your best keystone. I highly recommend Press the Attack for 99% of players. Now, there are 1% of players that actually will prefer Fleet Footwork, and I'm not going to sit here and say it's not viable. It definitely is viable. So Fleet Footwork is another thing you can test around, but generally speaking, if you're an Akshan player or you're trying to learn Akshan, I would just recommend going with PTA. You're going to lose way too much damage. You're going to lose so much of your champ identity if you go Fleet Footwork. I think the only way Fleet Footwork works is, one, if you're in a really low elo lobby that you can literally just go whatever, and two, if you're actually really, really good at Akshan and you can make full use of Fleet Footwork. But generally speaking, Press the Attack is just more consistent, more better, and I would just recommend going Press the Attack majority of your games. So, all right, moving on to the second tree. You have two options here. You can either go Triumph or you could go Presence of Mind. I recommend Presence of Mind. That's what I go every single game. I've went both. I've tested both. I don't like Triumph that much. I'm going to be honest. Whenever I have a reset champion that is mana hungry, aka Akshan, Presence of Mind is just too valuable. There's a lot of instances where I actually get a kill and I'm just out of mana because Akshan uses so much mana and Presence of Mind loses me a kill. So that's where it's like, is the 20 additional gold from Triumph worth it, or is Presence of Mind, actually giving me that mana more valuable? And in my opinion, I think Presence of Mind is just more valuable, but once again, both are still fine, so you can just test around what you enjoy the most. Third tree, you're going to always want to go Legend Alacrity. This is a no-brainer. Akshan doesn't strive well with attack speed, yes, but Legend Alacrity just gives you a baseline to start off with, and, it keeps going up like that. So, and also the other trees are generally just useless. Akshan doesn't utilize Tenacity, and Akshan doesn't really utilize Lifesteal. So, Legend Alacrity is going to be your best friend. And then the fourth tree, I recommend Coup de Grace basically every single game. I would say, I don't swap personally, but I'm not going to sit here and say the other options aren't viable. Cut down, if they have like 5 tanks, sure. And Last Stand, I don't know when this would ever be viable, but just go Coup de Grace. It's the best, and you're going to... It plays really well with his Execute as well, so whenever they're lower HP and you have an R, it's going to actually benefit from that. All right, moving on to secondary trees. This is where the video gets a little bit important for the runes. I personally recommend Resolve Tree every single game. I think Bone Plating plus Overgrowth is the standard. Bone Plating, for obvious reasons. People underestimate Bone Plating. People are like, Chen, what if they just poke out your Bone Plating? That doesn't really matter if you know how to play around that fact. And secondly, what people fail to understand is Bone Plating is still something you can use in river fights, still something you can use in mid-game, early game skirmishes. So, for example, if you're in mid lane, you shove, you still have your Bone Plating, and there's a fight in river, they can't really just poke that out, right? So you're going to have that Bone Plating to be extra tanky to start off those fights. So, in my opinion, Bone Plating is just the best. You could go Second Wind. I don't personally do Second Wind anymore, but you could. And that is definitely still viable. And then the reason for Overgrowth. Overgrowth, you're going to see, plays very well with how he wants to itemize, and it plays really well for just being a little extra tanky, and honestly is probably just the best secondary thing you could go on the Resolve Tree. Alternatively, Shield Bash is something people used to go, but I think it's less valuable now. I don't know why Akshan mains actually swapped, but overall, I think Overgrowth is just more value than Shield Bash. You can go whatever, though. I don't mind Shield Bash, Bone Plating. They're both still fine. Alternative secondaries that you can go. So once again, I touched on Resolve being, generally speaking, what you want to go every single game. But there are alternatives. Let's say, hypothetically, you want to have some fun. You can go Domination Tree. Sudden Impact and Treasure Hunter is going to be generally the standard red tree that you go. Sudden Impact because you're E, because of your camo. You're just going to do a lot of damage. This is the snowball setup if you want to snowball very heavily. Sorcery Tree. You can go Absolute Focus and Scorch. This is what the Koreans loved. I'm not massively a fan on this. Absolute Focus is a no-brainer. Once you EN, you're generally going to be 100 HP and you're going to do a bunch of damage. Also, if you play poke variants, Absolute Focus is gnarly because you're always going to be 100 HP poking them. And then Scorch is for early game. Once again, I'm not a massive fan of this, but it is still viable, so I do want to touch on it. And lastly, this is actually what I go second to most. Rarely will I go this, but there are times, is the Inspiration Tree. I go Triple Tonic into Cosmic Insight. Triple Tonic is an absolute bonkers rune on Akshan. The level 3, you don't really care. You just use it instantly for 40 gold. The level 6, you use it for a skirmish or a solo kill. You're almost always going to get a solo kill. And the level 9 is just absolutely broken. You are getting a level on E faster level on R faster, level on W faster throughout the whole entire game. That is insane. And then the reason why I go Cosmic Insight, it's a no-brainer once again. Summoner Spell Haste is pretty gnarly. You get more flashes, you get more ignites, you get more TPs. Plain and simple. And then alternatively, you could go Biscuit Delivery if you have a hard matchup. And yeah, that's basically it. Now let's talk about the mini trees. You're going to want to go attack speed every single game. Once again, for the same reason I talked on Alacrity, going Legend Alacrity, you still need some sort of attack speed. There's no reason not to start off the game with some baseline attack speed, right? Then, second, you want to go Adaptive Force. Raw AD, you're still looking to lane bully, even if you can't lane bully in some matchups. The other options are also pretty just bad. And then lastly, you want to go Scaling Health. You could go just raw 65 health. It honestly depends. I don't think it matters. I think health scaling is just better. I don't know the exact number. I believe health scaling outscales level 5 or level 6, 7, 9, somewhere like that. I think level 5 to level 7, health scaling is going to outvalue health, if I remember correctly. So generally speaking, in my opinion, I think it's just better having, you know, a bunch more extra HP. And due to his items that you're building on him, you're just getting a bunch of HP. But yeah, that is the runes. All right, real quick, I want to touch on Akshan summoner spells that you can go. This isn't going to be a long part of the video, but you know, I still feel as if it's valuable to touch on. You want to go flash every single game. There's a bunch of flash combos you can do with Akshan. For example, Q flash. For example, flash into E, R flash. There's a bunch of combos you can actually do with flash. And generally speaking, every champ in the game basically runs flash, right? Now, in terms of your secondary that you can run, this is where it gets a little bit important. TP and Ignite is the most common discussion that people ask me. What I'm going to say is TP is almost always better in higher elos because of how there's less action. But if there's a lot of action in your elos, you have to look for yourself. Do you see a lot of solo kill potential? Do you see a lot of jungle skirmishes? If you say yes to these, I think Ignite is probably just better. And then TP, once again, is better in high elo. What I will say is I think running whichever is just a preference. I do think they're both fine. Even in higher elos, you can run Ignite. Even in lower elos, you can run TP. They are both fine. It is just preference, but they are both equally as viable. Now, for the miniature summoner spells that you can go, like very, very rarely, 0.00%, 1% of the games that you can actually run, you can run a Ghost into specific matchups. For example, I like Ghost into Tryndamere mid. It's a really niche like way to cheese him because, you know, he's going to run in on you. It's sometimes hard for you to E away if he's just directly on top of you, so you can Ghost. Furthermore, if he jumps in on you, you can just run Ghost and kite him down with specific on-hit builds. You're getting a lot of movement speed, and Akshan's passive that makes it so he gets extra movement speed if he cancels an auto. You're just basically able to kite the living shit out of him, so Ghost is pretty underrated on Akshan. And lastly, Exhaust. I don't recommend going Exhaust. I don't run Exhaust, but I'm not going to sit here and say it's not viable. Let's say they have like 5 dive champions. Exhaust probably isn't that bad. You can test around with it. It's still viable. You can still go it. Doesn't mean there aren't better options. So, all right, now moving on to the section of the guide where I'm going to break open specific VODs to kind of grasp a specific concept for you guys to understand. This is going to be a straight up VOD from League of Legends, and then I have another stream VOD to demonstrate late game, but this is going to demonstrate early to mid game because I feel as if I executed early to mid game very well in this sort of guide. Real quick, I do want to mention this is a full challenger lobby. Buenos Dias, I don't know if you're familiar, but he is, or at least the former rank 1 of North America. So this is an insanely high elo lobby. Why I'm mentioning this is because I got away with significantly less than what you guys could, if that makes sense, right? If you're playing in a specific low elo and they go for troll things, I want you to capitalize on it. This guide isn't going to fully show that. I'm just basically showcasing specific concepts that you want to grasp. But if your teammates are straight up inting and you can get free damage, obviously go for it. So in the early game, nothing too crazy. I do want to pinpoint the fact that a Raptor Ward is very valuable because as Akshan, you have great escape tools with your E, obviously. So junglers can generally not gank you. But the only problem is when they're directly on top of you. If you have a Raptor Ward and you are hovering the opposite side of the jungler, there is literally almost 0% chance you die to any jungle ganks. So I highly recommend just going for a Raptor Ward virtually every single game. Alright, moving on. We now have a Galio matchup. Real quick, I do want to touch on the fact that a Galio is a free matchup, and he's not going to retaliate at all. That is very important to keep in mind. In champions that do retaliate, that's where, you know, former parts of the guide where I mentioned E starts. I'm not doing that here. Generally speaking, in matchups where they aren't contesting, I'm just going Q start, and we're looking to get short trades, but effective trades, right? Because keep in mind, Q has an 8-second cooldown, E has an 18-second cooldown, so it's literally double and more. So when you're going E, you're basically just sacking minions and sacking a lot of wave control just to get that sort of massive chunk in specific champions that deal with you, that can retaliate. For example, Orianna, Victor, stuff like that, right? Whereas Q start, you're looking to play the wave, play smart, play slow, and you're going to create advantages through that. So first and foremost, if you haven't realized already, I have autoed the first minion twice. It doesn't matter. As you can see, I autoed him twice. I think I autoed him again. Yes. Auto him 3 times. Doesn't matter how many times you auto. Doesn't matter who you're autoing, as long as you're autoing somewhat more than the enemy team. What does that do? That pushes for level 2 every single game. That is your first power spike. Every single early game for Akshan, you want to be playing for that early game power spike. So as you can see, I have lane prio. Now, another thing that is a mid lane fundamental that you need to be able to grasp is being able to look at your minions' HP and their minions' HP. For example, I see I have one low minion here, but I also see that he has a low minion here. So that is why I'm going for a Q here. I go for a Q. Both of my Q parts hit because obviously he's going for the minion. So it's a free guaranteed hit. And then I auto that to hit it. Now, there's like a common argument in the League of Legends history debating whether going for harass or going for 1 CS is more valuable. I generally think going for harass is more valuable, but because I am playing in Challenger in a consistent elo, basically what I'm trying to get at is in Challenger, if they play correctly, they should never die to Akshan. No matter what champion they lock in, no matter what matchup, they should never be able to die unless they're straight up inting. So keep that in mind. It depends on what elo, I would say, because I could easily go for Q auto on him and get a bigger chunk. But as you can see here, I still know minions are low, right? These 2 minions are low, so I auto him once to proc my passive, and I double auto this one to get it. So that is really good. You can still see basically the aftermath of what I did earlier, how there's 2 minions to 3. And he now has to give me respect because he's know I'm going to hit level 2 before him. I am pushing for that level 2. If you don't know much about wave management and you don't care much about wave management, just know you need the level 2 push every single game. That gives you a very strong advantage. And in general, in specific matchups, if you wanted to, you can easily go for an E just for create distance, leave your E, and then Q auto. And that will chunk them quite a bit. I do that occasionally, but once again in this matchup, like I can take it very slow. Once again, I saw my minions. I saw he was going for it, so I went for a trade. This is your mindset when playing Akshan, by the way. I hope you guys understand. I'm not like, this isn't the best example to show you guys, because if I wanted a really good example, I would just go to like fucking low elo and just ram them because they're gonna make so many mistakes. Because that's what, let's be honest, that's what's gonna happen in your games. Chances are, like, I highly doubt any of you guys are above masters where they actually understand how to play the game. So yes, I could show you a guide where I'm just ramming and out trading and completely getting them to half HP early game, but I feel as if that doesn't help you in the long run. I want you guys to learn these concepts that I'm actually trying to teach, because these concepts do apply to every single elo, right? So as you can see, I get a level 2 push. And once again, I am harassing every single minion that he tries to go for. I know he's going for that minion. I auto QQ. And just like that, a bunch of damage. I know Xin Zhao was here because of my Raptor Ward. So very important that I'm actually hovering topside, because I know he's going to bridge. He's either going to bridge or he's going to gank me here. That's why I'm playing at a safe distance. For example, if Galio was here, I could assume Xin Zhao's here, and I'm just going to, play at a much more safer distance. And it's fine to lose XP in that sense, or lose minions, but cool. Basically, by his positioning, I already know Xin Zhao's not coming. You can still see I'm kind of respecting it, though. There's a reason why I didn't go for the auto here and I went for a Q. You can see that my body posture is still respecting the fact that Xin Zhao could 3-camp into, you know, come over here and to gank. Because Galio obviously has CC set up. So I am respecting that. It's just very basic early game mechanics and macro and understanding. Nothing too crazy here. Same concept as to why I give that minion. I'm giving him the respect, and now that basically Xin Zhao's timer is completely gone, I don't have to give him respect anymore. So we're trying to auto. Fast forward a little bit. Letting the wave come to me. And this is the second most important, like, concept that you need to learn for the early game. The first one was the fact that you want level 2 prio every single game. You're going to be able to utilize that in a lot of games where you can just trade onto them, especially if they're bad. This is the second one, though. Every single game, a wave is going to come to you like this. It doesn't matter if you don't know anything about wave management. If you're not hitting a wave, the wave is naturally just going to look like this, and you can set up a freeze. Okay? So that is a very important concept. As you can see, I don't hit any of these because this is creating a freeze, and this is pixel perfect positioning for Akshan. And every single game, every single matchup. So I want you guys to understand this concept fully. The reason being is the fact that junglers can come, get a gank, free kill. The fact that Akshan has really good E angles. The fact that, like, for example, if I E here and he's trying to run, I cover literally the whole entire lane and he cannot run. That is why this position is pixel perfect for you, okay? And another thing I want to mention while this VOD is just going on is the fact that you don't even have to do anything. So I already mentioned the fact that this is Challenger, which once again makes me less inclined to do anything risky. The reason why I go in for this play is because I saw Xin Zhao. Otherwise, this is a very risky play. And we are able to trade him down a little bit. Once again, all of that is set up because I have him frozen. And now that he's low, I can look to hard shove, which is what I'm doing. I Q the wave. I want you guys to grasp for the early game, just make sure you're doing something in the laning phase. It doesn't have to be a kill. It can be short trades, making it so Galio can't play and impact the map. That is a win for mid lane. So as you can see, I do all of that. I have first move. There's a common misconception that Akshan needs to play for solo kills. That's not true. As you can see, it's 4 minutes and 32 and I'm already roaming. That's what I mentioned literally at the start of the video, how Akshan has one of the strongest roams and I only identify Akshan as a roamer. I don't even play for lane majority of the time. You can just play like this. It doesn't matter what elo you are. Yes, your mid laner might be win trading in like whatever elo you are and you can get solo kills. Sure, that's great. But if it doesn't happen, don't panic. Do not panic if you never get solo kills because you still can't carry with solo kills. If I'm playing in lower elo, me getting solo kills doesn't really do anything. But me impacting the map and making them behind while maintaining a lead in mid lane, that is how you win games. So as you can see, go for a roam. Able to pick up a Azir. And instantly I'm backing. They actually, no, I don't back. They try to go for this play, but I already know I can't impact it because I used my E. They go here. Remember what I said earlier, how Akshan in any sort of skirmish is extremely strong and you should be playing it and forcing it. So that's basically what's happening here. And I mean, that's just a triple kill. 5 minutes into the game. Really good. The game is basically already over. Just like that. So be open-minded, be able to play off of your teammates. Even if it's like 4 minutes. Normally, I'm going to be honest, I normally don't roam at 4 minutes. But the conditions of Azir being 1 HP and my jungler moving up, it was just a free kill. Cool, I reset, I TP. Once again, if you don't have TP, if you ignite, you just walk back, it's fine. I shove because my wave is bad. And then I help my junglers get grubs. Nothing happens here. I look for a top play. Once again, how I said earlier, I identify Akshan as a roamer. You're literally going to see me perma roam. This is what I do every single game, and it's how I have an 80% winner in Akshan. I am permanently roaming. Kind of failed a little bit mechanically, but it doesn't really matter. Just creating number advantage and making them tilted / behind is super valuable. I'm 4-0, 6 minutes in. play for one plate, we play for this wave, into a reset. Cool. So far, pretty easy to follow along, in my opinion. This is how your early game should look. I do want to touch on the fact that if you have an early death, you griefed. Okay, if you have an early death on Akshan, you simply just griefed. Keep that in mind, because this champ is strong early game, right? So, you should never die early game. Okay, let's see what I do here. There is a bot play happening. Instead of going mid, once again, I am roaming. So I'm pinging here. Now, I believe this one doesn't actually turn into anything. It doesn't. That's fine. That is perfectly fine. If it did turn into something, I would be there. But it didn't, so I go back mid. Cool. We shove. Look at Akshan's wave clear, by the way. It is literally one of the fastest. At level 8, level 7, that is as fast as you can get it. I play for a plate, i.e., and then I have complete prio. I choose to back here, but they don't know that, right? Like, as you can see here, Galio is pinging missing. He doesn't know where I'm going, right? If I was in camo here, even if he warded, I'm still in camo, he would be pinging his entire team to back off, right? I believe I backed for an item, though, which is why I backed. He shoves, that's fine. Once again, we are looking to create prio and shove. This is, I mean, in my opinion, 8 minutes is probably more towards mid-game. I don't know what you classify as early mid-game. But in my opinion, towards 8 minutes, what I would classify is early game is sort of laning, where you try to set up a freeze, try to get a kill. And then mid-game, in my opinion, it's technically not like 8-9 minutes. Yes, I understand that. Technically, mid-game classifies as like 1 or 2 items. You know, like 12 minutes, 13 minutes. But for Akshan, think of Akshan as starting mid-game towards 9 minutes when you have 1 item and you literally just shove and roam. This is all you have to do. Look, I'm not setting up a freeze. I'm not making methodical, you know, positions. I shove. Galio has to take time to shove this back. I go in camo, and it doesn't even matter if he sees me. He has to ping back. I kind of screwed up my camo here, actually. But it doesn't really matter. You get the concept. I'm still fogging. He can't really see me. It was warded here. There's a fight. I'm first to it because I have faster shove. Look at this. I get a kill. Nothing else to be had. I go back mid. Cool. We're going to rinse and repeat. I do a short trade. That was the combo I was talking about earlier. How you can Q auto-auto. If they're walking to you, it's going to guaranteed hit. He does have first move because Zenza was hovering. I can't force a shove there. And look, once again, hard shove. Look at how long it takes me to shove this entire thing. Whereas it would take other champions like upwards of 10 seconds. It takes me 5. Boom. Full wave is dead. Once again, invis. Galio signals missing. This is all you have to do. Now granted, sometimes you can't get stuff. It happens. But 99% of the games you will get something. Galio's still pinging missing. He doesn't know where I'm at. Go for a short trade. Cool. And then once again, back to hard shoving. Nothing crazy. I threaten a little bit here. I look to my sides. I see there's no play to be had, so I'm playing a little bit aggressive, either for a plate. If there's nothing to play for on the sides, you can play for a plate. That's all you want to do with Akshan. Cool. Nothing to be had. Once again, shoving the wave before it even meets. Look how long it takes. 1. Low-key, I want to count that. Let's count this. 1, 2, 3. 3 seconds for me to shove a wave. It takes Galio probably 5 to 6. You do that every single wave, you are like, it's just a mid-diff at that point. So obviously, nothing too crazy here. I'm looking for a reset, most likely because I have an item. Now, I see them fighting, so I actually go for Braum here. I don't think I get him. Yeah, I don't get him. I don't have enough mana for R, unfortunately. But there's a fight here. I see nothing to be gotten here, so I go Honey Fruits. I go back. Oh, I actually don't go mid. Oh, okay, so I actually back and TP here. If you have Ignite in this instance, you would just shove this out and then probably base and get your item. But I have TP, and I see this is just a free kill because he's extended, and I have a perfect TP ward. So that's why I force a base here, and I TP. And another kill. So far this game, guys, I have 5 kills, technically 6. 6 like map rotations, all of which had nothing to do with mid lane. Grasp that concept and you will climb with Akshan, I promise. If I'm doing this in literally the top tier Apex in North America, you can do this in your diamond games and your silver games, whatever elo you are, I promise. Okay, I go back mid. Once again, hard shove. This is brainless, right? Like, it doesn't take skill. There is no skill to be taken with shoving and roaming. This is why Akshan is super strong in solo queue. I shove and roam. Nothing to be had. Once again, hard shove this wave. And I roam. Alright. So, I mean, I'm not going to show you guys the rest. You guys can basically understand. This is what you're doing early to mid game. Yeah. This is what you're doing early to mid game. You're shoving, you're roaming. If the enemy laner is griefing, go for the kill, right? I'm not going to show you a video example of this, but you know if they're griefing. You've seen bad players grief. But generally speaking, this is like the most consistent way to play Akshan. 10.0 CS per minute, really high impact on the map. I basically impacted virtually half of the plays on the game, on this specific game, and this is all I do, literally. I just shove, I roam, I look for plays, and this is all you have to do on Akshan in the mid lane, so cool. Alright, now I have entered a stream VOD. Unfortunately, I don't really have a great VOD to demonstrate late game, so I'm choosing a stream VOD, so just kind of ignore the fact that I am muted, just looking over there, but this is a stream VOD. I can skip over it pretty easily, which is very nice. What are you going to look to do at late game? So in my opinion, late game starts roughly here. We're going to pay attention to the map. I know it is blurred. I understand that. But we're going to pay attention to the best of our abilities. So generally speaking, late game probably starts somewhere around here. Yes, I am fed, but still on the concept of what you want to do late game, this is going to show you. So as you can see, I'm on the side. I shove side and I go mid. Did you see that? And then I'm looking for plays because there is a Drake fight. We get a kill. I see Ezreal here. I think I actually miss out on this kill. I kind of misplayed. It's fine. And he's here. Okay, I died. Obviously, it's not going to be pixel perfect, but I want to like demonstrate more so macro as to what you're supposed to do late game. But as you can see, instantly when I'm out of base, I'm going to a side. That is the #1 weakness of players. They don't know how to side lane. This isn't just an Akshan main issue or an Akshan player issue. This is an issue with every single player. So I'm going to the side first. Obviously, I have to respect this guy a little bit. I believe I can kill him here, though. Should be able to kill him. Okay, IR, and he should just die here. Really good. So once again, playing off of the side. Can't get him. I actually end up inting here. Happens. Once again, side. Like, I don't really care what's happening in this VOD at all. I more so care about the macro that I'm trying to teach. And that is just emphasizing the fact that you should be going to the side virtually every single back unless there's an objective or there's a fight. Okay, those are the two caveats, but I go to the side. We get a Jax kill. Cool. I base. Go for Baron. Once again, still at the side. People say, Chen, how do you play Akshan late game? You draw pressure by going to the side so someone has to match and then you have a number advantage so you can win a team fight. It's like a math equation, okay? Now, I will mention, the game plan is really, really hard to do when you have Ignite. I have found this out. When you have Ignite towards the late game, the game plan does change a little bit. You still do want to go to the side, because if you're not catching sides, you're just losing out on XP, losing out on, plays. But your timers have to be very, very succinct, and there are times where you have to just sack side to go for a fight. But if you have TP, you don't need to do that. So I'm still at the side. There's a fight here. There's a Drake fight. I screw up my E. Still very, very strong. I ended up getting a kill. And cool. Okay, so let's see. Why did I not go to the side this one instance? Well, I was trying to chase a scoundrel. So once again, there are exceptions, right? I was trying to chase a scoundrel, couldn't get it. Now, real quick, pay attention to the minimap. I can't safely go here because I saw Annie here, and I can assume Annie goes here and probably jungle goes here, and I just die. So this is where you go mid lane. It is fine to steal your 80 carries farm. This is still high elo. This account is still Masters, Grandmasters. So this is still high elo. It's fine to steal your 80 carries farm. I don't want to say, like, don't care about them, but definitely play for yourself in a solo queue environment, especially, like, in this instance where I have 17 kills, right? So, once again, I shove mid, go to the side. I'm at the side, playing for tier 2 tower. I can't fully get it because none of my teammates are hovering me. We dodge tippers, but I'm still at the side, creating pressure, and now we're able to get it. Cool. You move from the side into mid lane. This is basically what I'm trying to get at in terms of a concept. We're able to get a pike. I got CC chained a bunch. I got a sub as well. Couldn't get anything. That is fine though. Let's see what I do here. I believe I'm waiting for my Jack show. I mean, at this point, late game macro is just late game macro, right? Like, basically, if you were to take anything out of watching this last few minutes, just go from the side to mid lane. Mid lane to side to mid lane, side lane. That is your best friend on Akshan late game. Now, there are instances like very, very late game, I will say, where you want to sack sides. I don't have a VOD readily available to showcase that, but if you're in a 40-minute game, you just want to look for a fight, okay? Maybe this VOD will show it. I haven't fully seen it. My teammates died. Yeah, I mean, this is basically the concept I'm trying to get at. If you're in specific late game team fights where, like, the next fight can end the game, you don't want to be side laning. You want to be near teammates, so if they die, you get a res, stuff like that, right? Because you are a camo character, you can play very, very stealthy, so once again, all of this is allowed because I'm a camo character. I actually believe I 1v3 here. Well, obviously Maokai's here, but, you know, you get the point. They didn't have enough damage to kill me. We get 2 kills, and that is GG. Okay, so hopefully you learn something from going from side lane to mid lane. That is going to be your best friend in the mid-late-ish part of the game. Roughly like 20 minutes onwards, going to the side, shoving out a side as far as you can, and then going into a team fight is going to be your best bet. Alrighty, we have reached the last section of the Akshan guide. Hopefully you guys have learned something so far. If you haven't, that would be crazy. But this is the matchup rundown. Now, real quick, I do want to mention, I'm not going to spend much time on this. It's not going to be massively in-depth where I give you insane tips for every single matchup. I think that's just a terrible idea. In my opinion, there's 2 things wrong about Akshan and making matchup guides. One, it's the fact that the skill disparity, it's more of an issue on Akshan, where like skill disparity matters way too much on Akshan as opposed to other champion. What do I mean by that? I mean, if the enemy ever knows how to play against an Akshan, an easy matchup can become a hard matchup. So it's a very unique situation, which I feel as if most champions don't share, but it is something with Akshan because his kit is so gated to being quote-unquote a cheese champion. I've literally heard high elo people call me abusing a cheese champion to climb, because that's quite literally what Akshan is if you think about it. He is cheesing the fact that you don't respect E-start. He's cheesing the fact that you don't respect him in lane. He's cheesing the fact that you don't know how to respect his roams. If you respect all 3 of these things, it doesn't matter what champ you lock in. You can lock in Yuumi mid and you probably will... The Akshan probably will not win. Obviously, that's an exaggeration, but hopefully you get the point. And the second reason why matchup guides just don't really matter is the fact that Akshan is innately, as a champion, who can just roam. So in a lot of these matchups, I'm just going to tell you to roam, quite frankly. So let's start off with the top section. You're going to realize real quick, there's a lot of like quote-unquote hard to really hard matchups. And quite a lot of skill matchups, whereas there's not a lot of easy matchups for the 2 reasons I mentioned earlier. So Starting off with the dodge category. These are the categories that you absolutely cannot interact in lane. Once again, assuming we're even skill level. If we're even skill level, you cannot interact with Annie. Any tips for Annie? I have no tips for you. Good luck, have fun. Annie is the devil. She is going to crush you. She has a stun, so you can never engage onto her. She has an E, so you never can out-trade her. She has an R, so if you ever jump in on her, tippers just run you down. You can never interact with Annie. Very fun matchup, in my opinion. Azir. Another very fun matchup. Once again, even footing. If they are a good player and understand how your champ works or are really good at Azir, you cannot play the game. It's really good. He outranges you. He has self-peel from his E and his R. And he just hurts in lane. He does a lot of poke, so whenever you try to shove the wave, he is going to retaliate and probably bring you to half HP. Really, really fun matchup. Malphite. Now, thank God, people actually don't know how to play Malphites. So in terms of the skill thing, it doesn't really matter. If they ever lock in Malphite, I can kind of win this matchup. But it's just because they don't know how to play Malphite. They're first timing it, and they're still doing well because it's Malphite. Malphite Q outpokes you. He outtanks you. That's all I have to say. You do no damage to him, and then he presses R and you die. Cool. Nico, good luck, have fun. 0 counterplay. If she is good, 0. There is literally 0. You can be Faker. She could be fucking Poop Low Bobbert, and you're still going to lose if she knows how to land her abilities at all. There's 0 counterplay. She counters you at all stages of the game. I would recommend dodging. Syndra. Syndra's a weird one, because I feel as if she's not good, it kind of goes into like a hard/kill matchup. If she's not good. I need to edit some of these, hold on. If she's not good. But it takes so little skill to play Syndra. I've seen Syndras miss every single Q, miss every single W, level 1, level 2, and then once they hit level 3 and onwards, when they have all 3 of their abilities, they QE once, they need it to land once, they press R, you can't play the game. Really fun. And obviously, the #1 hated, most notable hated Akshan matchup, it's Yasuo. Yasuo's wind wall completely countered your kit. That's basically it. He also has all in. His E makes it extremely hard for you to E, plus his wind wall, and his R makes it so he's directly on top of you, so you can never actually run away. Yasuo, definitely, I wouldn't say it's like dodge. I would say it's like impossible, but once again, like in terms of just on the fact that if they know how to play the game, if they know how to play the game, you are not going to play Akshan. So, you might be asking, Chen, well, how do you play into these matchups? Great you asked. You roam. You roam no matter what. You can be 2.0 CS per minute. I don't care. You are roaming that game. You are not staying in lane, doing absolutely nothing against any of these champions because you're going to lose. You are going to lose, okay? Now we have a tier slightly below dodge, and I mean slightly because quite literally slightly. All these matchups are going to fist you. Why does Diana fist you? Great question. Diana Q is a bullshit ability. The hit radius is insane. She outtrades you at every single point of the game with her W shield. She has instant engage and she has instant disrupt, so you can never E away from her. Yep, good luck having fun playing against Diana mid. Irelia, I'm gonna be honest, most Irelia suck, so I would honestly put Irelia hard. But if the Irelia has 2 brain cells, you are going to lose this matchup for the same reason as earlier. Right? She's going to instantly go on you. She has too much sustain, too much all-in power. And here's the best part. Here's the kicker, guys. You could kill her 3 times in lane, right? Because generally speaking, Irelias will make a bunch of mistakes. The champ's too hard for them. You're going to kill them 3 times. Here's the kicker. They kill you once you get borked. Doesn't matter. They could be 0-3, 0-6, 0-10, 0-90. Doesn't matter. They get borked. You're getting one shot. 0 counterplay. 0. Cool. Tristana is a very fun matchup. Very fun matchup. She outtrades you at every single point of the game. Every single point of the game, she will outtrade you. Especially early game. If you're playing mid to late game, if you play it well, you can kill her with a very good R. Basically, where you deal your damage, you get an E drive-by, and you're far enough to press R, where she doesn't press R and cancel your R. You can kill her, yes. But in laning phase, you just can't play. Also, her bombs just destroy you and destroys towers. Vex, now, I do want to put an asterisk on Vex. This matchup is actually, honestly, fairly easy if you go fleet footwork. This is the one matchup in this whole entire list where I genuinely would advise going fleet footwork, because Vex is such a bad champion. She has so many mana issues to where if you go fleet footwork, you survive her innate burst. She's just not really a champ. You just survive her. But yeah, that is Vex. Where did she go? Oh, okay. All right, and then Victor and Orianna, these two are the same reason as basically Syndra. I would say the reason why I put them below Syndra is just because of the fact that Syndra's E completely stops your E, whereas these champions don't have that, right? Victor has his W, but you can still get your swing off. And then Orianna has her R, but you can still get your swing off. Syndra, nope. She presses E, you're never swinging into her. So they're in the impossible. They're still extremely hard. And once again, if they know what they're doing, you cannot play the game. But that's the reason why they're impossible. So you might be asking, Chen, so far we have 12 champions. It seems you cannot play into. Correct. That is correct. So here's two things that you're going to have to do. One, you're going to have to pray they're bad. If they're bad, you can win all these matchups. Because once again, the reason why matchup tier lists just suck for Akshan is the fact that if they're bad, you're winning every matchup, and if they're good, you're losing every matchup. Okay? And number two, roaming. Shocker. In any of these matchups, you're going for roams, no matter what. Doesn't matter. Top died, and you have a scoundrel stack, go for that roam. Bot died, go for that roam. Jungle's fighting, go for that roam. I don't care what your wave is. That is the only way you play into these, on an even skill level footing. Alright? Now, I feel like these are just what I had to talk about. I mean, Akali's hard, she one-shots you. Anivia has a lot of disruption. Karma, thank God she got nerfed a bunch. Otherwise, she would be a dodge. She doesn't have as much damage as before, so you can kind of play and survive. Pantheon, one-shot you. Kiana, one-shot you while being invis. Ziggs, W's completely stop your E, one-shot you. And then Vlad, one-shot you. So these are all hard. And then skilled, I don't have to mention. And then easy, I don't really have to mention. So if you have like a specific question or comments as to a specific matchup, definitely leave down a comment below. I'll answer kind of more in depth, but in general, once again, I'm going to say it for the last time, Akshan just breaks the skill meter. If they know how to play against Akshan, you can't play the game. If you know how to play Akshan and they don't, you're just going to 1v9 type shit. So that is the matchup tier list. And with that, we have concluded the full in-depth Akshan guide. Hopefully this video has been a very good video for you to just be able to sit down and learn everything about Akshan, so you can either pick him up or master him if you are becoming Akshan main. Obviously, if you have any further questions, feel free to leave down in the comments below. I will answer every question. Once again, I do stream every single day on my Twitch, twitch.tv/Chen53. If you want to watch some live Akshan gameplay from the best Akshan in North America. That is it for the video. Let me know down in the comments below also what other videos you would like to see related to Akshan, specific guides, stuff like that. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. Chen out.